more or less incessantly, as if life should be easy. Life is a series of problems. Do we want to moan about them or solve them? Do we want our children to solve them? And so it's kind of a parallel point. To take up your cross to be a disciple and to expect the easy road is a false kind of gospel that's unfortunately preached from some pulpits these days. Thirdly, if you want to be my disciple, you got to prepare ahead, plan ahead. You got to know what's coming and be stiff in your resistance and in your preparation. I remember when I was a little kid in the suburb of Chicago, my dad started a new church, and there were all these new homes, and I pulled my little red wagon up and down the road, and all these carpenters would give me the cut-offs from the house, and I'd pile them up in the basement, and there were places where excavations were going on, not real deep, but 2 feet of water, big puddles and that, and I built myself a raft to go in those puddles. I built it in the basement, and when I got it done, I couldn't get it out. So that's my first experience, as many of you could share, about thinking ahead, planning ahead, and that kind of thing. I had an interim from St. Olaf College years ago, and it was Christian history of Rome, and we were in Milano in the north and went to Florence by bus from Florence down to Rome, and between Florence and Rome there was a city named Subiaco. And in Subiaco there was a huge cathedral that had been done in the 1500s. This is 1969, and it wasn't done yet. It wasn't done yet. They were still working on it. Apparently Jesus was looking at Herod's half-built temples, or half-built towers for some project off in the distance when he's preaching. And they were half-built. And so he used that as an example. Plan ahead and be able to finish what you have begun. Now, former congregation north of Chicago, years ago that I served for 20 years, we had a lot of acreage and a lot of people coming, and so we built a new church. We started it, but the builder was, to use the vernacular, the builder was a crook. He took our money and ran to Florida, which was the toughest place to get something legally done against such a person. And our architect was lazy and was giving certain okays to how far along the building was, so we could get more cash. But long story short, we were far from finished when we left. There was no cash left, and so some wanted to give up and just forget about the whole project, and others did not, and we finally built the church. But not without great effort and without more faith than we thought we had, and with a vision that not all had, that could be done. It's kind of like the boy who comes to his girlfriend's house, and they're both kind of young, and knocks on the door unannounced, and the girlfriend opens the door not knowing who it is, and she's got curlers, and she has an old ratty robe, and she's really embarrassed, and so is he, but she has enough sense of humor and sense of self-worth that she says, well, how do you like my hair? And he looks at her, and he says in his embarrassed tone, it looks about like it's going to be something very wonderful soon. Hope is a gift of faith, and what we can see that is not yet here. And sometimes it takes great difficulty to hang on. Years ago in a convention, when the American Lutheran Church was in existence, the assistant to the bishop was preaching, and he was talking about the formation of the seminary over in Columbus, Ohio. And there was a lot of Germans mostly, who were coming from the old country, as we say. That's Norwegian, not German, I guess. But anyway, he said at this convention back in the 1800s, he said, we have lots of Lutherans moving into the farms, but we have no land, we have no money, and we don't have any professors. Let's start a seminary. What is that but hope? Hope. Jesus wants us to taste risks, to be willing to have visions when it's so far off, and to share them with others who can't see it at all. He wants us to proceed with hope in our lives, and He will supply the rest. Cost of discipleship is assess your adversary. Today there's the counterculture, the self-indulgent world, greed, false philosophies, false shallow teachings, prosperity, gospel kind of stuff, destructive lifestyles that seek to confront and marginalize the true Christian faith, the values of 2,000 years. I may be going long here, but let me share anyway. Pave Rasmussen was a woman, one of 200 in the Finnish parliament. Her husband is a pastor of the ELCF, Evangelical Lutheran Church in Finland. 70% claim that recognition. She was against the government officially okaying and becoming a part of some pride event, the LG whatever event, and she quoted Romans as her argument, Romans 1:24-27, and talked about the shameful activities that Paul saw in Rome that day. And she asked, how can the church's doctrinal foundation, the Bible, be compatible with the lifting up of the shame and sin as such a subject as prideful? And then she was arrested. And now the prosecutors are examining whether she should be prosecuted and sent to jail. To which she said, I am not concerned on my part. I trust I will not be prosecuted. However, I am more concerned if quoting the Bible is considered even slightly illegal. I hope that this will not lead to censorship among Christians. In other words, I hope this doesn't even scare more Christians who know what the Scriptures teach to share them when they need to be shared and spoken, and to have the conviction to do so. There's no longer laws against some of these lifestyles like there was, and that was wrong. But now the laws are getting reversed, so just the opposite is happening. That is wrong as well, especially in a society such as ours. The cost of discipleship, to give up possessions. C.S. Lewis said something after he became a Christian. He was converted by someone named J.R.R. Tolkien, The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. And he said something interesting in this regard about giving up possessions. He said that in his book, Surprised by Grace, if you, a Christian, and your neighbor, a non-Christian, had the same income, and you have the same amount of stuff and material possessions, why? Why? And maybe it's an obvious thing that he's asking, maybe hopefully a rhetorical question. And so it goes. Sometimes, though, we are unable to kind of fulfill these confessional prospects or these confessional desires on Jesus' part to be a disciple because we're overwhelmed by sin. Luther would say there's points in our life where sin has so much invaded our life that we are in a position where we can no longer do the right thing. That is frightening. I'm in a position now because of sin, no matter what I do, it's not going to be right. It's going to be wrong. It's going to be sinful. And then Luther said only two things will happen. One is we will fall into despair. Or two, we will turn to Jesus Christ and His grace. Because we can't do it anymore on our own. And that, too, then applies to what it means to be a disciple. It seems so extreme. Lord, I can't do these things. I'm trying, but I'm failing, and sometimes miserably. Then we turn to God's grace in Christ Jesus. A classmate of mine, Michael Foss, writes Power Surge, and he says that these are the things that reflect the Christian's life. Daily prayer, weekly worship, Bible reading, service beyond the congregation, spiritual friendships, the giving of our time and resources. Also, another list such as that talks about inviting others and passing on the faith. And so it goes that those things are part of what it means to be following Jesus. I finished with a quote from him and a comment on saltiness. Michael says, Michael Kloss, the marks of the disciple have nothing to do with a legalistic, law-oriented approach to faith. The purpose is not to create super Christians or any kind of spiritual elite. No one earns salvation or gains any special favor from God by practicing the marks of a disciple. They are simply the habits of the soul that opens us to the wonders and the mystery of God's active presence in our lives. They keep us focused. They fix our attention on the things of God. We're salty Christians, and salt only a little bit influenced the greatest part. That's what Jesus continues and concludes by telling us. And Foss, I'll close with his words, when you notice people dealing with concrete realities of life through practice of prayer and holy reading, it is a you have entered the culture of a disciple. Bless us with such times in our life, dear Lord. Amen. The peace of God that passes understanding, keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus.